Don't you know I'm pumped up my kicks, ho? Night City, you know I'm at back, baby. She don't got no customer, though. In the level clubbing, baby. That's just how it goes, though. I don't need a slow flow. Somebody I used to know. Video game half man. She just want the black flag. I just gotta sweat her. That just be the weather. Skinny lover, baby. She a blondie. That's just new slang for them tightrope mommies. Yeah, that's right. Don't mess it up. That's the move, girl. Don't mess it up. That's my groove, girl. The less I know, the better. Baby girl, I rip high. When I start sleeping on the floor, when I get hot. 10,000 opioids. 10,000 in a row. What, baby, what you want? Money and the chemicals. Electric love.
Hello. Thank you guys for coming in. This is Willy P TV1 or Willy P 417 or Willy P 420, depending on what you're getting me on. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is another Willy P Reacts. Let's go ahead and get right into this thing, right? That's the whole reason that we're here, right? So let's go here.
I ain't gonna hold you. I just got my motherfucking money in from that motherfucking UFC lawsuit, though. I got my money from that shit.
The moment everyone's been waiting for, Rampage Jackson has just celebrated receiving his cut of the $375 million UFC settlement. But Dana White, he's furious, as fighters cash in on this massive payout.
Yeah, I bet you he's mad because he's having to pay. But for all this time, he ripped, or not that he ripped them off, but like he just wasn't doing fighters right. So.
Tensions between UFC management and its former stars are hitting an all-time high. So how did this all unfold, and why is Dana so angry? Let's break it down. The celebration that shook the MMA world. Picture this. It's a chilly November evening in 2025, and Quentin Rampage Jackson, the man who once slam-dunked opponents into oblivion, the former UFC light heavyweight champion whose thunderous power...
Dude, Rampage Jackson was mean.
Made him a household
That's
name,
true.
sitting in front of his webcam, streaming to thousands of fans. But tonight isn't about reliving past glory or hyping up a comeback fight. No, tonight Rampage has something entirely different to celebrate. Something that's been 10 years in the making. Something that represents vindication for not just him, but for over 1,000 fighters who felt the sting of being undervalued during the UFC's meteoric rise. With a grin stretching ear to ear, the 47-year-old legend can barely contain his excitement as he makes an announcement that immediately goes viral across social media platforms.
I ain't gonna hold you. I just got my motherfucking money in from that motherfucking UFC lawsuit, though. I got my money from that shit. See a little extra bump before Christmas. You know what I'm saying? That money helped, though. You're right, that money helped, though.
The moment is electric, raw, and unapologetically honest.
Yeah. I mean, he's just being true to himself. And, I mean, I doubt that he's in serious, dire needs or straits for money. He's been like a fairly wealthy person for a long, long time.
Everything that Rampage Jackson has always been.
And, like, what happened to Roz Jackson? Like, they just stopped talking about that case. What happened there? What happened to him? What did he slammed that guy Stu, the wrestler guy? But last I had heard, I thought he got arrested finally, but I didn't really understand why he got arrested, because I don't know. I'm kind of going left field of what this video is about. But if you slammed, even if it's a fake beer on my head and I didn't know it, I'd want to break your teeth into your mouth too. But I think that he went way too far with it. I do. But I kind of get it. Like, you kind of get it in a sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone that was there, that was traumatizing. But that's all I have to say. Well, let's continue.
As he continues, his voice thick with emotion,
Yeah,
he adds those
there's
words
Raj right there. Boom.
that hit every fan
pretty
right in
sure.
the heart.
My kids gonna have a good Christmas this year. Everybody said a ride. I mean,
Everybody except for Raj.
so it'll be like, I'll be saying too much on this.
This celebration, shared on November 8th, 2025, wasn't just about money hitting his bank account, though that certainly sweetened the deal. It was about something far more profound: acknowledgement. After years of feeling exploited, after speaking out about blocked sponsorship deals, after accusing the UFC of inflating gate numbers, and after walking away from the promotion in 2013 feeling undervalued and disrespected, Rampage was finally getting his due. But let's rewind for a moment and understand exactly what this money...
Yeah, no, like, he definitely was like a main face of the brand and basically got treated like garbage in a sense, but
represents, because this isn't just some random bonus check or a retroactive payment from the UFC's generosity. This is compensation from the historic $375 million UFC antitrust settlement, one of the largest payouts in sports litigation history, and it's the culmination of a legal battle that began way back in December 2014. The Lever-Zuffa lawsuit, filed by former UFC middleweight Kung Le alongside several other fighters, painted a damning picture of the UFC's business practices during what many consider the promotion's golden era of growth. The allegations were serious and extensive. The fighters claimed that the UFC had orchestrated a monopoly, using exclusive dealing arrangements with venues, sponsors, and broadcasters to prevent fighters from negotiating with rival promotions. They argued that this stranglehold on the sport suppressed fighter pay artificially, even as the UFC was raking in billions from pay-per-view events, international.
Yeah. Basically, they were completely screwing their
broadcasts
fighters.
and merchandise.
Like, the whole reason that people were there is for the fighters, and then they're screwing the fighters. It's crazy.
Sales. Think about what that means for a second. During the very years when the UFC was growing from a fringe spectacle into a global juggernaut worth over $4 billion by its 2016 sale to WME IMG, the fighters who were putting their bodies on the line, who were absorbing brain-rattling knockouts and career-ending injuries, who were building the brand with their blood and sweat, these same
It's just what I was just saying.
fighters were allegedly being systematically underpaid. The lawsuit accused the UFC of binding fighters into multi-fight contracts that barred them from capitalizing on their fame elsewhere, creating what the plaintiffs described as a pipeline that funneled emerging stars directly into the UFC's ecosystem without viable alternatives. The case dragged on for years, involving extensive discovery processes where attorneys pored over internal UFC emails that allegedly revealed strategies to starve competitors of top talent. There were expert witnesses clashing over economic models, with plaintiffs' economists arguing that without the UFC's restraints, fighters could have earned 20-30% more through open bidding wars.
Holy cow.
With other promotions. The UFC naturally defended itself vigorously, arguing that their model created value through matchmaking, medical care, and global exposure that loose affiliations with other promotions could never provide. By 2023, the case reached a critical juncture when a Las Vegas jury sided decisively with the fighters, awarding damages that underscored the depth of the alleged harm. But legal battles are never straightforward, and U.S. District Judge Richard M. Bulwer-Tyler reduced the award in a post-trial ruling, citing legal caps, which prompted the UFC to appeal to the Ninth Circuit. Then came the settlement negotiations, a behind-the-scenes chess match that would ultimately reshape how fighter compensation is viewed in mixed martial arts. An initial $335 million proposal in August 2024 was swiftly rejected by Judge Bulwer, who deemed it insufficient.
That is a freaking ton load of money.
And problematic due to the way it combined two separate classes.
It's like a Brink's worth of money.
Of fighters with conflicting interests. This rejection forced both sides back to the negotiating table, leading to the revised $375 million accord announced in September 2024. Now here's where it gets particularly interesting for fighters like Rampage Jackson. The settlement specifically targeted fighters who competed in UFC events between December 16th, 2010 and June 30th, 2017, what's known as the class period. This time frame captured the UFC's explosive growth phase, the era when the promotion was transforming from a cable curiosity into a mainstream entertainment powerhouse, but when fighter pay structures had not kept pace with the company's skyrocketing revenues. According to court filings, 1 through 88 eligible fighters submitted claims, representing a staggering 97% participation rate. That number alone tells you something profound. These weren't just a handful of disgruntled ex-fighters looking for a payday. This was nearly every eligible fighter saying, yes, we were undervalued. Yes, we deserve compensation. The allocation formula wasn't a simple equal split. Instead, it was designed to be more nuanced and fair.
I believe that, though. I believe that they were underpaying them. They were filling their pockets up, their jet planes up, all their pockets up, while the person who's the actual entertainment is getting screwed.
Weighing factors like the number of fights each fighter had during the class period, their career earnings during those years.
Also, guys, if you would, I totally forgot to do this. Sigma Insights, if you guys would, go give them a subscribe, a like, go view this. 3 days ago, man.
And their overall draw as a promotional asset. Fighters were compensated based on their pay and number of bouts during the class period, with payouts averaging $230,000, but ranging as high as $10.3 million. For someone like Anderson Silva, widely considered one of the greatest fighters of all time, reports indicated he received over $10 million, a testament to both his legendary status and his drawing power during those crucial years. But even fighters further down the card, the journeymen who fought on the prelims and never sniffed a title shot, were receiving checks that could genuinely change their post-fighting lives. Final approval for the settlement came in October 2025, and by early November, the checks began rolling out with a 90-day cashing window. For fighters like Rampage, who had spent years speaking out about what he viewed as exploitation, from the UFC allegedly blocking his sponsorship deals with Round 5 and Reebok to feeling pushed toward early retirement out of spite, this payment represented more than just money. It was validation. When Rampage said on that livestream that his kids would have a good Christmas, he was speaking to something deeper than material gifts. He paused briefly after mentioning his kids, adding everybody except for Raj, before catching himself, a subtle
Jeez.
a telling moment. His eldest son, Raja Jackson, was facing felony battery charges after a violent incident
Holy shit, they actually have the video.
at a pro wrestling event earlier in the year, a case that could carry up to 7 years in prison if convicted. The UFC payout, in that context, became not just about celebrating past victories, but about providing security during a time of family crisis. But Rampage's celebration wasn't happening in isolation. It was unfolding against a backdrop of massive industry upheaval and a disturbing scandal that would force everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about fighter compensation and the very integrity of the sport itself, the billion-dollar deal, and the invisible losers. While Rampage Jackson was counting his settlement money and thanking the legal system for finally acknowledging what fighters had known all along, the UFC was simultaneously announcing what should have been cause for universal
Dang. You know, and that's the whole reason why Dana's mad. He's losing money on
celebration,
it.
a transformative $7.7 billion 7-year media rights agreement with Paramount Global, announced back in August 2025. To put this in perspective, this deal averages $1.1 billion annually, effectively doubling what the promotion was making from its previous arrangement with ESPN, which brought in around $500 to $550 million per year. This wasn't just another contract renewal. This was the UFC fundamentally restructuring its distribution model, moving away from the pay-per-view fortress that had defined the sport's revenue stream since the early 2000s, and toward a subscription-based ecosystem on Paramount Plus, with select marquee events simulcast on CBS for mainstream exposure. For fans, this represented a potential windfall. Instead of shelling out approximately $1,000 a year for an ESPN Plus subscription plus individual pay-per-views at $79.99 each, they could now access everything for either $8 monthly with ads or $13 without them on Paramount Plus. But when veteran MMA journalist Ariel Helwani broke down the implications of this massive deal, his analysis revealed a troubling disparity in who truly benefited.
Yesterday, we kind of just presented you the news and sort of talked about it, digested it, inspected it, dissected it, all that stuff. Well, today I want to talk more about it as I've had time to allow myself to
Actually breathe it in.
think, ponder, marinate this massive news. And one of the conclusions that I came to, which, you know, it doesn't take a rocket science to break this down this way, but this is how I'm breaking it down. 4 entities are at play here. 4 entities were involved and affected by yesterday's news.
Helwani identified those 4 entities clearly. Paramount winning by acquiring exclusive content, the UFC winning massively with doubled revenue, the fans winning with significantly reduced costs, and finally the fighters.
The last entity, of course, are the fighters. And to me, they're the big losers here. They're the big losers, not because, you know, the viewership gets affected. That remains to be seen. If you're behind less of a paywall, you're seen by more people, that's probably a win. But number one, they're sitting here watching all the executives wave their pom-poms and say how great this is. They're sitting here hearing Dana White say this is good for the fighters.
And that's where the fundamental disconnect emerges. When Dana White appeared on various media outlets
Yeah, it's a win for him, especially since you guys just took $325 million.
to discuss this monumental deal, he was effusive about what it meant for everyone involved. Obviously, fighter pay will go up with this deal, White proclaimed, framing it as inevitable that fighters would see financial benefits. His most concrete promise centered on performance incentives. The bonuses are obviously going up, he assured listeners, hinting at potential increases to the long-standing $50,000 Performance of the Night awards. Yet Helwani's skepticism was rooted in hard numbers and uncomfortable questions.
And so my thought process goes to, well, how? How is it good for the fighters? Is the base pay going up? Is the introductory pay going up? 10 and 10, is it now going to be 20 and 20? Are we getting rid of the show win model as a result? Are the performance bonuses now going to be 50K to 100K? Is it going to be now like 100K a pop as opposed to 50K a pop? What becomes of the champions with pay-per-view points? We saw Tom Aspinall on the program yesterday saying, well, what becomes of my pay-per-view points? No one has told me. The vast majority, if not all of the fighters, didn't know about this. They didn't consult them. They don't have to. There's no CBA.
UFC COO Hunter Campbell confirmed in October that they were already in the process of renegotiating contracts for fighters who had previously received pay-per-view points, a necessary step since the traditional PPV model that these fighters had counted on for their biggest paydays was being dismantled. But what about the vast majority of fighters who never reached that elite tier where PPV points were even on the table? This is where the mathematics of fighter compensation versus company revenue becomes genuinely disturbing. According to analysts like John S. Nash, while the fighter compensation pool might increase by approximately $74 million annually, representing a 33% bump, the fighter's overall revenue share could actually decline to around 15%. To contextualize how staggering that disparity is, consider that NBA players receive approximately 50% of league revenues, NFL players secure 48.8%, and MLB players command around 49%. Even in the notoriously fighter-unfriendly world of boxing, top-tier athletes routinely command 50-60% of event revenue. Helwani drove this point home with devastating clarity.
And so when you consider that, and you also consider the fact that they're making 0% of this $7.7 billion, at least as of now. I hope to be proven wrong. 0% of that ad revenue as well, when NBA players, for example, make 50% of the TV revenue and the overall revenue, I should say. And as a result of the TV revenue, the salary cap goes up and all these things are moving up, which benefits the players. If I'm a fighter sitting back and watching this, I'm like, well, how exactly does this benefit me? How is this actually better?
The UFC's defense of their compensation model has remained remarkably consistent over the years. In a September 2024 interview with Yahoo Sports, White insisted, "We make fighters money. Don't believe the bullshit," pointing to total payouts exceeding $300 million in 2024 as proof of the UFC's commitment to fighter
300 million payouts just in 2024.
welfare. His standard response to criticism has become almost a mantra, one he delivered with characteristic bluntness.
People like to push the buttons and talk about fighter pay, and you don't ever see us coming out and talking about it or doing whatever, because I don't give a shit. I got 20-something-year-old Jake Paul, a f***ing YouTuber, talking about fighter pay, or these other guys on the internet. We know what the hell we're doing over here. And at the end of the day, my philosophy is always this: it's nobody's business what these fighters are making. None of these guys are under some type of gag order in their contract. Any fighter on the roster can come out and tell you guys what they make.
But this argument starts to crumble when you examine the actual base pay structures that the majority of fighters operate under. Preliminary fighters, those who open the card and often fight in front of sparse crowds before the arena fills up, still typically earn $10,000 to $12,000 show money with an equal amount for winning, numbers that haven't substantially changed in over a decade despite the UFC's valuation skyrocketing from hundreds of millions to over $12 billion as part of TKO Group holdings. Consider what this means in practical terms. A preliminary fighter who wins their bout walks away with $20,000 to $24,000 gross. From that, they must pay their management team, typically 10-20%, their coaches and training partners, their travel expenses since the UFC only covers the fighter and one cornerman, their medical insurance premiums since fighters are classified as independent contractors rather than employees, and of course taxes. Surveys indicate that approximately
So it's a way to screw them. It's a way to make them pay all the taxes on all their money, and they don't have to do anything but just give them the money.
40% of UFC fighters
And they actually, I'm pretty sure, get tax reductions because
maintain
of that.
second jobs to make ends meet. Think about that for a moment. Nearly half of the athletes competing in what Dana White himself touts as the world's premier mixed martial arts organization are working side gigs, driving for Uber, teaching classes at local gyms.
And I think that is crazy, that if you are, it's like he just brought up the NBA player thing, or like NFL or NHL or like all of them, they all get paid enough to where that can be their sole thing. And that's why I feel like a lot of fighters aren't able to stay continuous, because they're having to do other stuff. They're not able to just focus on this one thing. And if they were able to, you would have it how you have like NFL players, NBA players, shit like that. But I guess then at that point, then that's where the paying them what they're worth would come into play. But that's just...
Or in the case of former heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic, maintaining full-time careers as firefighters. This is the context in which Rampage Jackson's advocacy for significantly increased bonuses takes on particular urgency. When he suggested on his Jackson podcast that Fight of the Night bonuses should jump to $1 million, he wasn't just throwing out a random number. He was doing the math that everyone watching can do. If the UFC is now bringing in $1.1 billion annually just from media rights, not counting gate receipts, merchandise, international deals, or the myriad other revenue streams, then allocating $2 million per event, $1 million each for 2 Fight of the Night bonuses, represents a rounding error in the company's budget while potentially being life.
Yeah, but at that point, I mean, dude, people would... Shit, at $1 million, I mean, you might as well go in there and throw the fight. I'll let you kick me in the face for $1 million. Shit, give me $500,000 and you get a kick in the face for the MMA. That would be the fear that I would have in my head, that's what people would do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they would do stuff so that, because they know that it's not just $50,000 anymore. It's not worth taking that shot.
Changing for the recipients. If I was a promoter and I had the bankroll the UFC had, I would up the Fight of the Night bonus, Rampage argued. They just made $7 billion more just for rights, right? I would up the Fight of the Night bonus to $1 million, so there's $2 more million per show. They can afford it. You're going to get more exciting fights. His logic was sound. Fighters often produce cautious point-fighting performances because the financial risk of losing far outweighs the potential reward of an exciting finish. When your show money barely covers your training camp expenses, when a loss could mean being cut from the roster,
Real
losing your only
talk.
viable path to making a living from fighting, the smart move is to play it safe, take the decision, and live to fight another day. But if that fight of the night bonus suddenly represented the kind of money that could pay off your mortgage, fund your kid's college education, or provide security for years to come, fighters would be far more willing to take risks, to go for the finish, to put on the kind of spectacular performances that made fans fall in love with MMA in the first place. Yet White has indicated that while bonuses might increase, he's thinking more along the lines of doubling them to $100,000 rather than the $1 million leap Rampage proposed. It's a move in the right direction, certainly, but one that feels calculated to generate positive headlines without fundamental.
Then that's what I was thinking in my head, is that like 100,000 actually isn't crazy. Like, especially since you were already doing 50,000, and not gonna lie, like they like just from the 7 billion right there, you have plenty of you have plenty enough money that you could take care of all the fighters for probably the rest of their lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, sheesh. $1 million from where I'm from could take care of somebody for literally their whole life. Like, just being honest, like a normal house, a normal, like living a normal life, like you would be able to live a normal life pretty easy. At least for, I'd say 15, 20 years, as long as you're not done with your money.
Altering the power dynamic between promotion and fighters. One particularly fascinating aspect Helwani highlighted was the massive disparity in social media reach between ESPN's platforms and CBS Paramount's digital presence, a factor that could significantly impact fighters' ability to build their personal brands and secure sponsorships outside their UFC contracts.
ESPN on Twitter, SportsCenter on Twitter, ESPN.
And they usually don't let them. They usually block anything. Like, they used to try and do like get a tattoo of whatever it is on their chest, so then when they take off their shirts, but then like I'm pretty sure the UFC was making them like, okay, well then you'll wear a shirt then, because we don't want that brand to be promoted. It's like crazy.
ESPN on
crazy
ESPN MMA
stuff
on
like
Twitter.
that.
Okay, these are the numbers: 58.8 million ESPN, 45 SportsCenter, ESPN MMA 1.6. Compare that to say CBS, Paramount Plus, CBS Sports. Twitter 1.1, 416, 1.4. Blow them out of the water. Look at Instagram: 28.2 to 965, 38.8 to 1.5, 4.6 to 1.5, blown out of the water. Facebook 24 to 2.4, 17.4 to 3.8, 4.8 to 4.4. Close on that one, but that's ESPN MMA to CBS Sports.
This matters enormously for fighters trying to build their personal brands, because in an era where athletes are increasingly
But you got to realize that all that data would be old data from when, because they don't have any data from, they wouldn't have any real data right now from UFC switching over to Paramount, because everybody might be just watching. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people watch ESPN for sports, for all sports, whatever you're into. So
expected to market themselves and leverage social media for sponsorships.
But fighting
being
is
featured
a
on
good
platforms
way
with significantly smaller
move it.
organic reach could meaningfully impact a fighter's ability to monetize their fame beyond their UFC contract. When ESPN's combined social media following totals over 300 million compared to CBS Paramount's 32.6 million, the visibility gap becomes impossible to ignore. The timing of this mega deal coinciding with the settlement payouts creates a jarring juxtaposition. Fighters from the 2010-2017 era are finally receiving compensation for being underpaid during the UFC's previous growth phase, while current fighters watch the promotion secure another massive financial windfall without any guarantee that their base compensation will meaningfully increase. It's a cycle that feels disturbingly familiar, and one that leads directly to the scandal that would expose just how dangerous this compensation disparity has become. When desperation breeds corruption. On November 2nd, 2025, just 6 days before
Crazy.
Rampage Jackson would celebrate receiving his settlement money, an event unfolded at UFC Fight Night 263 in Las Vegas that would fundamentally alter the conversation around fighter pay in mixed martial arts. Isaac Dolgarian, a 28-year-old featherweight known as the Midwest Choppa, entered his bout against Yadier Del Valle as a commanding 250 favorite, riding a 9-fight unbeaten streak in the organization that had positioned him as a rising prospect in the division. But something was very wrong. By 1 p.m. Eastern Time on fight day, the odds had tightened dramatically to 130, with suspicious betting patterns flooding the market, including heavy action on round 1 finish props that IC360, the UFC's integrity monitoring partner, immediately flagged as anomalous. Reports would later indicate that potentially $16 million had been wagered against Dolgarian, a staggering sum that suggested something far more sophisticated than casual gambling. Dana White's response to the alert from IC360 was immediate and telling.
Probably about 1 o'clock that day, we're with a company called IC360, and they are the best bet monitoring company in the business. And they reached out to us and they told us that there was some unusual action going on with that fight. Do we know anything? You know, we didn't. So what we did was we called the fighter and his lawyer and said, what's going on? There's some weird action going on in your bet, weird betting action going on in your fight. Are Are you injured? Do you owe anybody money? Has anybody approached you to, you know, and the kid said, no, absolutely not. I'm going to kill this guy. And, you know, so we said, okay. The fight plays out.
The questions White asked are extraordinarily revealing. Are you injured? Do you owe anybody money? Has anybody approached you? These aren't abstract inquiries. They represent the exact pressure points where financial vulnerability intersects with moral compromise. When Dolgarian tapped to a guillotine choke at 3:41 of the first round in what observers and analysts would later describe as a suspiciously passive performance for a fighter of his grappling pedigree, White's worst fears appeared confirmed.
And first round finish by rear naked choke. Literally, the first thing we did was call the FBI. So we called the FBI. I've met with the FBI twice today.
The implosion was swift and devastating. Major sportsbooks like DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, and William Hill issued over $5 million in refunds, treating the bout as compromised. The Nevada State Athletic Commission froze Dolgarian's $30,000 purse, scheduling a November 15th hearing that could result in indefinite suspension. The UFC released Dolgarian from his contract within 24 hours, and perhaps most significantly, White's meetings with FBI Director Kash Patel represented an escalation that sent shockwaves through the MMA community. White's declaration of war on corruption was unequivocal.
So,
Crazy.
You know,
Crazy. So he's like, he's trying to like, it kind of feels like he's like, I'm gonna rage war on anything around me now. I mean, dude, like I said, he just did $7 billion, and it's like, dude, this guy's got money, dude, literally pouring out of his ass.
If you try to do this, I've been very vocal and very open about this. We will be your worst enemy. We will immediately go after you,
Which
guns
makes
a-blazing,
sense.
with the FBI and whoever else we need to get.
If people are rigging stuff and trying to screw over your bets and other people that are betting and doing the right thing, damn right.
And we will do everything we can to make sure you go to prison.
But the true bombshell came not from official investigations, but from fighters themselves, who began coming forward with stories that painted a horrifying picture of how widespread the temptation had become. Vince Morales, a bantamweight journeyman, revealed he had been offered $70,000 years earlier to throw a fight, a sum that, for someone typically earning $20,000 to $40,000 per bout, represented more money than many fighters see in a year of competition. Vanessa Demopoulos and Lando Venata corroborated these accounts with their own experiences of being approached, transforming what might have seemed like an isolated incident into evidence of systematic targeting of vulnerable athletes. The math here is brutally simple and impossibly cruel. When you're a fighter earning $12,000 to show and $12,000 to win, when a significant percentage of your peers are working second jobs just to afford training camps, when 35% of fighters are in debt, an offer of $70,000 becomes not just tempting, but potentially overwhelming. That's enough to pay off credit cards, to cover medical bills from previous fights, to provide a cushion that might allow you to train full-time without the constant anxiety about making rent.
I don't know why they keep showing John Jones. This guy, dude, I'm pretty sure he was freaking... I'm pretty sure he was using I think uppers and which, you know, everyone has their vices and their thing, but I'm pretty sure he was doing uppers and also was doing what is it called? Like muscle enhancement drugs. Like he was doing like it's like where they do the shots into the butt. But
Dana White's response to fighters coming forward was
they keep showing
unfortunately
him
tone deaf to this underlying
he's like
desperation.
the best
Like,
fighter ever.
You know, you're seeing things out on the internet where like fighters are coming out and going, "Oh, I was approached. Really? Why didn't you tell us that? Or more importantly, why didn't you tell law enforcement that you were approached? Now you're saying that you were approached? It's like if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I want you to rob a bank. I'm going to rob banks. Want to rob a bank with me?" And you don't do it. What, you're not gonna tell law enforcement? It's really weird that fighters are coming out now saying they were approached.
This response misses a crucial point. Fighters didn't report these approaches because they feared retaliation, because they didn't believe they'd be taken seriously, or because, and this is perhaps most damning, the systemic pay structure made the temptation real enough that they wanted to leave the door slightly ajar, even as they ultimately chose not to walk through it. When Joe
Oh, so it gives them the opportunity to come back if it ever needed to be that way.
Rogan discussed the scandal on his podcast, he framed it as a tragedy directly linked to compensation disparities, pointing to high-profile exits like Francis Ngannou's departure to PFL over guaranteed money disputes as evidence that even champions felt undervalued. Social media erupted with threads directly connecting low pay to betting corruption, with one particularly viral post stating bluntly, "If pay wasn't shit, This wouldn't happen. Luke Thomas captured the dark irony perfectly. Shadowy fixers preying on fighters in a system where 80% of revenues vanish into corporate coffers, while the athletes who generate that value struggle to survive. The scandal has prompted the UFC to implement new policies, including pre-fight cancellations when betting irregularities are detected, rather than allowing suspected compromised bouts to proceed. But these are reactive measures, band-aids on a wound that requires surgery. As of early November 2025, no charges had been filed, though the FBI investigation was described as active and expanding, with multiple fighters reportedly cooperating, including at least one who emerged as an informant seeking reward money. This scandal didn't emerge in a vacuum. It's connected to a broader pattern. The 2022 incident involving coach James Krause and fighter Derek Minner, where suspicious betting patterns led to federal investigations and Krause's indefinite USADA suspension, established that organized attempts to compromise fights weren't theoretical threats, but present dangers. Dulgarian's affiliation with Factory X Gym.
And my whole thing is like, why? I mean, I get it. I mean, it's not right either way, but I get it.
The same facility Krause had been associated with added an eerie symmetry that suggested potential networks preying on the vulnerable. The juxtaposition of these events, Rampage celebrating his settlement, the UFC announcing its historic media deal, and this betting scandal exposing the desperation of underpaid fighters, creates a narrative that's impossible to ignore. While the UFC is celebrating billion-dollar deals and fighter legends are finally receiving compensation for past exploitation, current roster members are reportedly being targeted by criminal syndicates precisely because their financial situations make them vulnerable. The settlement, for all its significance, doesn't address this ongoing crisis. It only covered fighters from 2010 to 2017, meaning everyone currently on the roster, everyone who might be approached tomorrow with an offer to throw their next fight, received nothing. The Johnson class of fighters, covering 2017 onward, continues to pursue their own case, but that litigation is just beginning the discovery phase and could take years to resolve. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen.
That's just crazy, man. That's just crazy. But if you guys have enjoyed watching, I appreciate it. And a lot of fighters, 1,000 fighters, are getting their piece of $325 million. But Dana White just signed a new deal with Paramount Plus for $7.7 billion. And now they're having issues with people betting and then throwing the fight to win money. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. If you guys have anything that you guys think that you think I'd think it was cool, let me know in the comments. Other than that, thank you guys. And this has been Willy P Reacts. And you guys have a great night.